Welcome back to the most professional sports channel on YouTube. Welcome back to Swivel Chair Sports. I'm your host, Zach Circlebark Purple. Here's the coast today, Aaron and Joe. Go and say hi, guys.
Hi.
Alright, so in this video, we'll be giving our quarter season power rankings. First power ranking video we've put out since week 1 of the NFL season. We'll be ranking our teams from honorable mention. We'll be starting with an honorable mention and then working our way up from 10 all the way up to our number 1 team in the NFL, who we think is the best team in the league.
If you like our content, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment. Let us know what you think.
But back to the video. Starting off with our honorable mention. I'll go first. Got the Washington Commanders. Starting off 3-1 on the season, beating the Giants, Bengals, Cardinals, losing to the Bucks, who I also have later on in this power rankings. But Jaden Daniels looked incredible. Him, along with the new coaching staff, has seemingly turned that franchise around, a la CJ Stroud 2023. So they feel very reminiscent of that Texans squad from a year ago. Offense is just absolutely humming with Cliff Kingsbury as the OC over there. And, I just don't see how, the only way you're going to beat this team is if you're going to be able to keep up with them scoring-wise. Right now, I don't know how many teams in the NFL can really do that. But I think it's safe to say that the Commanders are at least in the top third of the league, or at least in the top half of the league, borderline top third. So I've got them just on the edge here at number 11.
For my honorable mention is actually going to be the Seahawks. So they're 3-1. Some people might hate me for not putting them in the top 10. We talked about it in a previous video. Their first 3 wins weren't against the greatest opponents. But what they did against the Lions, it showed me a lot. I feel like I just need to see it maybe one more time against one more good team, whether it be a real tight game or a win. Then I could have them in the top 10, but just not quite there. The defense ain't doing it enough for me to crack that 10.
I've got kind of a 3-way tie for the same reason for my number 11. I've got the Commanders, Steelers, and Seahawks. All teams have, shown a lot of promise on one side of the ball, but the other side could definitely use a bit of work. I flip back and forth with having the Commanders and Steelers both ranked, but just not quite there. So those are my 3 honorable mentions.
Yeah, those are kind of the 3 teams I came down to when making my 10 and honorable mention. Was Steelers, Seahawks, Commanders. I went with Seahawks at 10, obviously Commanders at 11, and then the Steelers just missed out. But reason I had the Seahawks over the Commanders was really that Lions game last night. Up until then, it was probably pretty much the same as the Commanders. You saw them beat up on the Broncos, Pats, and Dolphins without Tua. You saw the Commanders beat up on the Giants, Bengals. I mean, I guess that's probably the best team out of this bunch as far as we know. We think so, and then the Cardinals. But then the Seahawks were able to really, compete with a Lions team that seems to be the best team in the conference right now. Put up almost 30 points on them. Granted, probably not the best defense in the conference by any means, but I still think the Seahawks aren't quite on the same level as some of those other contenders in the NFC. Like their 3-0 start may have led some to believe. Obviously, they took going to the overtime for them to be the Patriots after all. But I do think Geno Smith is going to be enough to keep that offense going at a level strong enough to overcome some of the deficiencies of the defense. And with the Niners being, banged up to the degree they are, same with the Rams, Cardinals may not be as good as I originally thought. I could see the Seahawks being, competing for that NFC West title. So I've got them at 10.
Yeah, I've got the Saints at 10. Showed a lot of offensive power there early on. Did you forget about the Saints? You forgot about the Saints. I've got the Saints there at 10, showing a lot of offensive prowess early on, and then having a pretty stingy defense there as well. Just played the Falcons, who's shown with Kirk Cousins that they've got a developing offense. Played a good close game with them last week. So I've got the Saints at 10.
So my 10 spot, I guess I should have had 2 for honorable mention. My 10 spot's actually kind of like a tie. One was to the Saints, and my other one was the Steelers. Try not to be. I'm not gonna say anything about the Saints because I agree completely with Aaron put. Considering what their offense did, they should probably be 10, and the Steelers should probably be honorable mention. I think the Steelers are right on the edge. They should be 4-0. A couple dumb mistakes, fumble by Pickens, miscommunicated snap that kind of ruined the final drive for us, and then a terrible call by the ref. But nonetheless, unacceptable. Our defense didn't play the way they should have. If they did like normal, then we wouldn't have this issue. But being a few plays away from 4-0, I like the Steelers enough compared to what I've seen with a lot of the other teams in the league. I like us enough to at least be around 10. So I'll put no bias. I'll put the Steelers. I'll drop them to my second honorable mention spot, or first. They're above the Seahawks too.
So on top of forgetting the Saints, I also forgot about the Falcons. But we're gonna stick with the power rankings that I have. I still think I think a lot of the teams from like 7 down to like 12 are interchangeable. A lot, like for the most part at least. So I'm gonna ride with what I got. Number 9, I got the Texans, who I'm a little low on right now. Beating the Colts, Titans, and beating the Colts, Bears, and Jaguars this year. None of those teams are particularly good. Colts win was way closer than it probably should have been, as was the Bears win. And then the Jags are just one of the worst teams in football this season. Got beaten down by the only decent team you've played this year in the Vikings, so that's a little bit concerning. And that offensive line just doesn't seem like it's going to be quite up to the level it needs to be in order to make a deep playoff push this year, unless they get a whole lot better between now and then. I had a whole lot of high expectations on the Texans going into the year. Had them winning, I think, 14 games, getting the 1 seed in the AFC. Right now, I think they just need to focus on winning their division, because that Jags game was looking a little questionable there for a little bit. And if the Jags would have came out on top, all of a sudden only a game between the two in the division. And I don't think that's anywhere you want to be as the Houston Texans. I don't think you want to be anywhere near the Jacksonville Jaguars this year with how that team's going. So probably dropped a good like 3, 4, 5 spots for me since the beginning of the year. But I got the Texans at 9.
Yeah, I've got the Texans at 9 as well. I also have concerns about their offensive line. I will say that Bears team has a good defense, so I'm not super worried about how close kind of that game was. And I also think the Jaguars are a better team than the record says. They played pretty well there against the Texans. So they laid a couple eggs there early against the Dolphins and the Bills. So they've got some things to turn around, but they've got some good players. They just need to get it figured out there. But yeah, Texans' early struggles, I don't think really either of us foresaw. So Texans at 9.
My number 9, I absolutely think that this is high ranking them at number 9, but I'm taking the Commanders.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with the flow, man. They're 3-1. Jaden Daniels doesn't look like a rookie these last 2 weeks. They lost to the Bucs week 1. I think the Bucs are legit. I think they're a good team. So considering that that's their one loss, I mean, heck, putting up dang near averaging 40 points the last 2 games. I mean, it's what the Saints did the first 2. So I'm just gonna ride with the champ on that one, and let's put the Commanders at 9.
Number 8, I have another team that's been underperforming my expectations to a degree. I mean, some outside circumstances aren't really the reason why at all, because they won those 2 games without Jordan Love. It's the Green Bay Packers. 2-2 right now. Beat the Colts and Titans. Like I said, without Jordan Love, with Malik Willis under center. Their 2 losses against the Eagles and Vikings are with Jordan Love, their supposed franchise quarterback, which I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think that's a correlation. I'm just saying it's a funny coincidence. Probably also due mostly to the fact that they played the Colts and Titans in those 2 games with Malik Willis, and not the Eagles or Vikings. So, gotta figure out how to beat good teams. They were competitive in both of those games, one of them being the very first game of the season, so you can attribute a little bit of that to rust. And then the second one being Jordan Love's first game back, which you can also attribute a little bit to rust. One encouraging thing in this Vikings game, they did come back from a large deficit of, I believe it was 28-0 to start the game, able to come all the way back and make it a one-possession game, I think losing by less than a field goal. So, really gave themselves a shot down the stretch, just couldn't, stay competitive long enough at the beginning for it to really matter. I think this Packers team is going to be fine. Secondary seems much improved from last year. Once that offense kind of gets all on the same page, I think that's going to be really good as well. Kind of saw hints of that in that Vikings matchup this past week. So, yeah, they'll probably move up before season's end, but as of right now, Packers at 8.
Haven't won a game with their starting quarterback. QB controversy there in Green Bay?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Definitely.
At 8, I've got the Falcons. This is purely a projection sort of pick. Not really sure what to expect from that Falcons defense, but Kirk Cousins seems to be making strides with that offense, sort of developing and gelling with those young receivers down there. So I expect this team to be in the playoff hunt towards the end of the season, and I've got the Falcons at 8.
My number 8. I'm curious to see if you guys have this team still on your top 10, but my number 8 is going to go to the Niners. The stories, the injuries, and stuff like that. I just don't. I can't take them out of the top 10 until they prove to me that they still can't compete on the field the way they are. Fred Warner got banged up this past week. I don't know if he's even in question or not for this week. Now, if he's out, I think that's a huge difference compared to already the guys that they're missing on offense. That's their defensive leader without a doubt. But still just that team was oozing talent. And outside of injuries, I think they still got guys on the field that can play and win games. So I got them at 8 for now.
At number 7, I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Starting off 3-1 this year with their one loss being a game they shouldn't have to the Denver Broncos. But Sean Payton, like I said in a previous video, just seems to have that voodoo magic from his days down in New Orleans over the NFC South, and probably end up going 4-0 against that division this year. So really nothing you can do about that. But outside that game, Tampa Bay's looked really, really good. Baker Mayfield put himself in MVP conversations early on in the season, beating the Lions and Eagles, as well as the Commanders, who could be a really good team. So they're not beating, these middling teams in the the Eagles might be a little middling right now, who knows? But they're supposed to be good teams. All 3 of these are either good or was supposed to be a good team when they played them, and I just don't really see how this team's gonna slow down anytime soon. They've got a stronger division than we expected, but still a weak division in my opinion in the NFC South. The Panthers, despite their change at quarterback, should win both of those games right there. That gets you to 5 wins all of a sudden. Saints, I think those are 2 easily winnable, or two winnable games, not necessarily easily winnable, but let's say you split those, all of a sudden you're at 6 wins. You at least split with the Falcons as well, then you're at 7 wins. All you really have to do at that point is win another game, 2, maybe 3 on top of those that you already have sealed up or have won already, and you're probably in the playoffs. So the Bucs are in great position right now, and probably a top 4 team in the NFC at this point in the season, I think.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board with Joe. I've got a little worries about my number 7 team, that's the 49ers. They just don't feel like the same dominant team that they have been in the past. Probably some of that's due to injuries. I think some of that's due to the preseason drama that they had with contract negotiations and all that. But this team just doesn't quite feel the same as it did the past 2 seasons, especially. So um, I think they'll bounce back once they get Christian McCaffrey back. May return next week or as early as next week. So we'll see there. But I've got the 49ers at 7.
This will be a quick one for me. My number 7 was same as you, Bert. I had the Tampa at number 7 for all the reasons you said. Baker's playing with that swag that he played with at OU and that he played with early in his career in Cleveland. And when Baker starts to play like that, like anyone knows, when you get into a groove, especially a quarterback, I mean, sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, number 6, you guys already talked about them, so I'm gonna try to make it short. I got the Niners, probably a little too high on them, but I do have faith that the culture they build over there is going to be strong enough to overcome some of those woes that they're currently going through, mostly injury related. Haven't really beaten any great teams yet. They did beat the Jets in week 1, but that was Aaron Rodgers' first game in over a year, so not much to be said about that one. Beat the Patriots, then you got just smacked around by the Vikings and just choked away one against the Rams at what was a road away game or a road home game, because basically the whole city of San Francisco was down there in the city of Los Angeles to cheer you on against the Rams, and you still somehow come up with a loss down the stretch.
Neither the Rams nor the Chargers really have home games. So.
No, I know, that was the joke. But yeah, the Niners, like you guys said, just don't look like the same Niners team that we're used to, so I'm probably a little high on them, but I've still got them at 6, hanging on to that top 16 stature.
Yeah, I've got the Bucs at 6. Have looked really good on offense. Baker seems to be fitting in and looking better than he did last year, a little bit more comfortable in that system. Defense looks good. You guys kind of touched on a lot of it, so Bucs at 6.
My number 6 team, Burke hit on earlier, is Houston. I got the Texans. They don't seem like they're quite performing, even though they're 3-1, not really up to expectations as far as last year. I just expected to see maybe a little more dominance from them, especially from the offensive side of the ball. Nonetheless, they're getting the job done. The game against the Jags was way too close, but Joe Mixon being out, I'm not forgetting the fact that he rushed for 160 yards in his first game with the Texans. Losing a guy like that and their backup, Dameon Pierce, both out for the last 2 weeks. I mean, that just puts a lot on C.J. Stroud's shoulders, and I think, part of what made them so successful was being able to distribute to all the talent that they have on that field. So I still think they're fine, but would just like to see a little bit more.
My number 5 spot, just cracking the top 5. A team that I just could not ignore when it came to just purely the record that they have. You could argue could be higher, even. I got the Vikings, undefeated thus far. Beat the Giants, Niners, Texans, and Packers. So 3 of those teams that they've played, really good teams. Like, they're not beating, it's not like they're playing the Giants every week, okay? They're beating some good squads and beating them pretty soundly. Beating the Niners by, I think it was double digits. Beating the Texans definitely by double digits. And now beating the Packers, where they were up 28 and then just kind of let the game get a little close down the stretch, but still came out with the W. That defense is on another level right now. Up until this past week, I think they were the only team left once the Steelers game got over that didn't let up a team or let a team score double-digit points or something like that through 3 weeks outside the Steelers. On top of that, Sam Darnold, MVP candidate, lead the league in touchdown passes, up there in passing yards as well. I mean, this Vikings team doesn't seem like they're a fluke or like a early season good fun little story, or even like a Josh Dobbs situation like they were last year with the Pastronaut, going crazy for a couple weeks. This seems real. Aaron Jones seems like he's, picking up right where he left off in Green Bay. We don't have to worry about these close one-score wins that they had a few years ago, where it was very possible the Vikings just kind of lucked into a playoff spot. This team's beating teams down and going undefeated through the first 4 weeks of the season. There's something to be said about that, even if one of those wins is against the Giants. So I got Vikings at 5.
All that, and you got them at 5.
I probably should have them higher, honestly, but the 4 teams I have ahead of them just have a little bit more. There's a little bit more evidence there. Yeah, a little bit more pedigree, a little bit more evidence to support that they're not just like
being the only other 4-0 team.
Listen, man,
Yes.
shit can change fast. like I'm not going off of just I'm not going off just this season for this.
I've got the Bills at 5. I think they kind of surprised almost everybody with how good that defense has played, with the exception of yesterday against the Ravens. And that offense, those receivers really have kind of stepped up to replace what they lost in the offseason. Good production on both sides of the ball. Josh Allen looks good. That offensive line looks good. So I've got Bills at 5.
Yeah, my 5. And here we go, Aaron. Also the Bills. So if they didn't, honestly, I would have gave them a few, maybe a little bit higher, if they didn't just get outright dominated by Baltimore. Burke, in a previous video, referred to them dropping yet another big game. That's the only reason why they're at 5. If they could have even put up a remotely close fight in that game, or at least competitive, maybe I have them a little higher. But that ass whooping that Derrick Henry and Lamar put on this past week is the reason why they're just sticking at 5 for me.
Yeah, well, I got the Bills at 4. Basically everything you guys said already, as same kind of applies here. Would have probably had them at number 2 if they would have beat the Ravens this week. Because, like I said last week, I think they were the second best team in the league to me going into this past week. And then they just got kind of worked by the Ravens, and so now I've got some question marks about them, and maybe not as many question marks about the Ravens as I had a week ago. Reason I have them ahead of the Vikings, just more, like you guys kind of said, pedigree than what the Vikings have. A little bit more evidence when I look back, more than just these first 4 games of the season. I've got a little bit more faith in Josh Allen than I do Sam Darnold. I've got a little bit more faith in that Bills offense than I do that Vikings offense to, be able to sustain. Well, maybe not the weapons. The Vikings do have better weapons. Okay, now you're making me second guess myself. Fuck you guys.
Just for the hell of it, since you wanted just to keep it, steaming in your head.
Yeah.
The Bills' 3 wins are the Cardinals, the Dolphins, and the Jaguars.
Yeah, that's a good point. But hey, I guess it just comes down to Josh Allen versus Sam Darnold. I have much more faith in Josh Allen than I do Sam Darnold. So that's really the only.
That's perfectly valid. I've used that logic many times in the past. So
I respect it.
I don't blame you. That being said, I've got the Ravens at 4.
Wow.
Just laid that ass whooping on the Bills. Now they're figuring out how to use Derrick Henry the right way. They're climbing up those rankings. Good stingy defense. Those cornerbacks and safeties are sticky in coverage. Play a lot of man. Good team. Ravens at 4.
My 4 is, Aaron's gonna be contemplating 4. Anyway, no, it's not. My number 4 is the Lions. They're 3-1. They're good. I'm sure you guys probably have them ranked somewhere. Maybe I don't know about Aaron. Aaron's not a big fan of Jared Goff at all. So they might not even have been in the top 10 for them. But yeah, the Lions can't put them higher than 4 simply because back-to-back only scoring. Well, they lost to the Bucks. Who the Bucks are decent, but the Bucks only scored 20, and they only beat the Cardinals by 20-13, and then they put up 42 on the Seahawks. Seahawks defense ain't very good, but I guess just want to see a little bit more dominance from the Lions to be able to put them a little higher. I guess. I really don't know. That's just who I have it for.
Yeah, I've got the Lions at 3. Like I said, haven't been the most dominant team to start the season. I'm not too worried about that. I mean, at the end of the day, they've got heart and soul like Dan Campbell steering the ship, so they're going to turn it on when they need to, for sure. Only beaten, the Rams, Cardinals, and Seahawks, so Seahawks probably a good team. Rams could have been if they weren't, banged up to all high heaven, but haven't really played anybody too crazy good. Bucks probably the best team they've played, and they lost to them, so that is a little bit of a concern there. But I think it really comes down to keeping Jared Goff clean. If they can keep Jared Goff upright in the pocket, they've got as good a chance as any team. I think they're right now the best team in the NFC, in my opinion, at least the most evidence that we have out of any NFC team of being good outside of the Vikings, probably. So, yeah, just kind of like same I said with the Bills. The reason I have them out of the Vikings, they showed last year that they're capable of making a run, getting to the conference championship game, being up at halftime even of the conference championship game. So, I've got Lions at 3, pretty much just based off of I've got more faith in that team than I do Bills or Vikings right now.
Yeah, I've got as much as I think he's overrated, Jared Goff has been playing well this year, so I'll go with the Lions at 3 as well. Good team, dominant offensive line. Those DBs look pretty good. Terrion Arnold's coming along for a rookie. Just got to clean up some of that downfield contact, get a few less DPIs. But kind of like you guys both said, it's a good, solid team all around.
My number 3, definitely can argue it, is Baltimore. They're 2-2. Granted, their first loss was inches away from overtime, at least, with the Chiefs. He was out of bounds for anyone who tried to argue and come on there and say that it was clearly out of bounds. He was out. So, anyways, they lost to the Raiders by 3. Unacceptable. They should not have lost that game. Don't matter. And they almost blew it against the Cowboys. But man, Derrick Henry back-to-back 150-yard games. I have the Bills at number 5, but the way they just went out and dominated the Bills kind of looks like a layout of maybe they're getting into the flow of things and kind of know what their identity is and what they want to be. Really going to be up to them. I mean, they play the Bengals, Commanders, Bucks, and Browns, and Broncos in that order. And the Bucks game looks like the only one that should be anything to be maybe concerned about. But we'll see.
Yeah, my number 2, I got the Ravens. Like you said, Joe, lost that close one to the Chiefs, best team in the league, as you've probably figured out from my perspective. So, you can't be too upset about that one. Raiders won, agree, unacceptable. And after the Cowboys game, I had a different tune, or I was singing a different tune about this Ravens squad. I was not very happy with them. Did not view them as legitimate title contenders, at least at that point in the season, and just completely, flipped the script against the Bills this past Monday, just tearing them a new asshole. And Derrick Henry really seeming to find a place in that offense. They're seeming to get comfortable utilizing him and Lamar Jackson's skill sets together, and I've really just kind of started to establish an identity, which I think was the big problem those first 3 weeks, was they didn't know what the hell they wanted to be. Did they want to be a passing team? Did they want to be a running team? Be a running team. You have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Run the fucking football. It's not hard. Seemingly figured that out. And by golly, it worked. Holy shit, who would have thought? So I've got the Ravens as long as they, lean into their strengths, which seems to be a problem with this franchise for years now. As long as they lean on their strengths, they should be the downright second best team in the NFL. Whether or not that's going to happen is kind of the question. So, I've got Ravens at 2.
At 2, I've got the Kansas City Chiefs. I know Burke's probably not going to like that too much, but they haven't looked super impressive so far. Granted, they have played some really good teams. Down both of their number 1 receivers, or their top 2 receivers. So they're struggling in that department, looking to probably make a move here pretty soon to acquire some talent there. But defense looks good. Still got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Pacheco out for the foreseeable future. Brought in Kareem Hunt. He looked good last game. So it's a good team. Haven't looked as dominant, obviously, as Chiefs fans would like. They've got the refs on their side, so that's always a plus. So I've got the Chiefs at 2.
My number 2 is the Vikings. I'm giving it to them purely based on the fact they're the only other team, along with the Chiefs, that are 4-0 right now. Berg made a point earlier. They're not beating just a bunch of scrubs. Their offense is out there putting up points. They're dominating people. The defense has played well up until the second half of this past week. They've been dominating. So just out of respect to them being 4-0, and there's probably not a single person that watches any football that could have predicted the Vikings being 4-0 to start the season, other than Vikings fans that were hoping for 4-0. They're firing on all cylinders. They got Jordan Addison back. TJ Hawkinson is probably back within the next couple weeks. You know, God willing for them. They're just playing good football right now. And 4-0 is 4-0. They beat the Texans, who I have in the top 10, so that's got to count for something. So 4-0, I got my number 2.
Yeah, just for the record, I had them starting off 1-3 before the season began. So, and I'm as smart as they come. Not really. My number 1 team, probably no surprise, given the shirt I'm wearing. I got the Kansas City Chiefs. They haven't won in the most impressive fashions, but they've beaten some pretty good teams. The Ravens, say what you want about the Bengals, they play their best football against the Kansas City Chiefs, and Joe Burrow's still Joe Burrow. Yeah, whatever you want to say, Joe. Aaron had him as kind of, sort of, jokingly an honorable mention earlier. So the Falcons, I think, is a decent team, and the Chargers had one of the better defenses in football as of right now. So I don't think they've played.
Without Derwin James.
I don't think they've played the easiest schedule up to this point. They are still the back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions with Patrick Mahomes, with Travis Kelce, with Andy Reid. Did lose Rashee Rice on top of Isaiah Pacheco earlier in the year, and then Hollywood Brown even before the season started. But if there's any team that can overcome that shit, it's the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So I think despite all of that, they should still be viewed as the best team in football. And I think just about every other NFL franchise would agree with that they're viewed as the best team in football, or at least the most concerning, the biggest team to be afraid of in football, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, Chiefs at 1. I don't want to get into a whole diatribe as to why.
I've got the Vikings at 1.
Boo.
They've looked very dominant these first few weeks. I'm not really concerned about that Packers win. That was very Cowboys-esque, kind of making it look closer than it actually was there at the end. Got arguably the best receiving core in the league. That defensive pass rush has just been absolutely lethal when they get an early lead. Darnold's playing well, so I've got the Vikings at 1.
Mine's easy. I got Chiefs. They got 15 healthy in that quarterback. They got a chance. I'm telling them, I've said it before. I'll probably say it every week. Until somebody knocks them off, I'm rolling with them as number 1.
It's a good thing we're on 17-0 then, Joe. But unless y'all got anything else, I think that'll do it for this episode of the most unprofessional sports channel on YouTube, Swivel Chair Sports. I've been your host, Zach Zuckerberg. We're all here with the coach today, Aaron and Joe. Go say bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. Make sure to like and subscribe if you made it this far into the video. Enjoy our content. Make sure to comment down below with your own top 10 power rankings of the NFL at the quarter point of the season. And most of all, deuces. And have a good day.